Hey everyone, ready for some Halloween fun? I am. But before we get lost in all things spooky and start decorating, let's talk about keeping our furry family members safe. You know, Halloween, as much as we love it, can be a bit tricky for our canine companions.
You're absolutely right. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of costumes and candy, and we sometimes forget about those hidden dangers that Halloween can bring for our furry friends.
Exactly. So we found this really interesting guide on Halloween pet safety, and I have to say, it was a real eye-opener. I mean, we all know chocolate is a no-go for dogs, but did you know that even those seemingly harmless candy wrappers can be dangerous?
Absolutely. Dogs, especially when they're excited, they might try to swallow wrappers whole, and that can lead to, well, you can imagine choking hazards or even blockages in their digestive system.
It's like a hidden danger lurking in that candy bowl.
Exactly.
So gotta keep that candy stash on lockdown, right?
Absolutely. High shelves, closed cabinets. Yeah, the usual drill. And maybe remind those little ghouls and goblins in the house to do the same with their trick-or-treat bags. Speaking of hidden dangers.
Oh yeah, there are more.
There are more. Okay, lay it on me.
Xylitol.
Xylitol.
It's an artificial sweetener, and it's in a lot of sugar-free candies. And you might not realize this, but it's even in some peanut butter brands.
Oh wow, I didn't know that about peanut butter.
Yeah.
Especially since so many people use it for homemade dog treats.
That's
It's a little terrifying.
It is. And even small amounts can be toxic to dogs.
Wow.
And let's not forget raisins. They often pop up in Halloween treats, and they can cause kidney failure in dogs.
It's amazing all the things we don't even think about this time of year. Okay, so we've covered the candy conundrum. What about decorations? I mean, those fake cobwebs, the spooky lights, they really set the mood, but are we putting our pups at risk?
You bring up another really important point. You know, what screams Halloween to us can actually pose some real hazards to our furry friends. For example, those fake cobwebs. Dogs might ingest them,
Oh, of course.
leading to, you guessed it, more choking hazards or digestive issues.
Right. And I'm guessing candles and wagging tails don't really mix, do they?
No, not at all. Open flames are a big no-no, for obvious reasons. Curious noses, flickering flames, recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
And here's one you might not expect.
Glow sticks.
Wait, really? Glow sticks? They seem harmless.
They do, don't they? But the liquid inside, while it's not super toxic, it can cause upset stomachs and even vomiting if ingested. And plus, those little plastic tubes, super tempting for dogs to chew on.
Oh yeah, they love to chew.
Exactly.
So what do? Just drape our houses in caution tape? How do we decorate for Halloween safely?
No caution tape needed. We can still have a spooktacularly decorated home without compromising safety. Think battery-operated candles, LED lights.
Okay, those are good.
Yeah.
Those are good. They add to the spooky vibe without the risk. So it's all about being mindful of what we put out. All right, now this next topic is near and dear to my heart. Costumes. You know, some dogs, they rock them like they were born on a runway, and then there are others, not so much, right? It's all about finding that balance between adorable and safe and comfortable for our furry companions.
Yeah, I am all for a good dog costume, don't get me wrong, but safety and comfort have to come first. What are some things we should keep in mind when we're choosing a costume for our canine companions?
Well, one of the biggest things is to make sure the costume fits properly. You don't want anything too tight that's going to restrict their movement or their breathing. And always double check for small, dangling parts that could be choking hazards.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the cuteness factor and to totally miss those things.
Absolutely. And you know, even if a costume looks harmless, it might not be comfortable for your dog. Imagine being wrapped in fabric, unable to move or see properly, with all the excitement of Halloween going on around you.
Poor pups. It's like being at a party where you don't know anyone and can't move your arms. And speaking of feeling overwhelmed with all those spooky sights and sounds, how can we create, like, a calming haven for our dogs amidst all the Halloween excitement?
Yeah.
Like, sensory overload, Halloween style. So how can we help our pups stay chill amidst all the chaos?
That's where creating a safe haven comes in. You know, their own little escape room away from the doorbell and the costumes and all that.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, just a quiet room or even their crate decked out with their favorite blankets and toys, maybe even a shirt that smells like you.
Yeah, that's a good one. Familiar scents are always comforting. Now, what about walks on Halloween night? Can we still do those, or is it best to just stay home?
Walks are definitely doable, but they do require some extra precautions. I mean, visibility is key, right? It's dark, kids are running around everywhere, costumes can obscure vision, both for us and for drivers. And the last thing we want is an accident because someone couldn't see our furry friend.
Oh, absolutely not. So we're talking reflective gear, right? Like those light-up leashes and collars, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Anything reflective or illuminated. And don't forget a flashlight for yourselves, too.
Right, it's about seeing as much as it is being seen. Good point. Okay, this guide mentions something called doorbell danger. And I'm a little scared to ask, but what exactly is that?
Well, it's actually a very real risk that a lot of pet parents don't consider. I mean, think about it. Every time that doorbell rings, it's a potential escape route for a dog, especially if they're already feeling stressed or overwhelmed by all the activity.
Oh no, yeah, I can just picture it now. My dog turns into Houdini when he sees an open door. So what's the best way to prevent a Halloween escape?
Secure confinement during peak trick-or-treating hours is key.
Okay.
Whether it's a crate, a baby gate, even a designated room, as long as they're safely inside away from the front door.
It's like a little staycation for them.
Exactly.
While the neighborhood's turned into a spooky spectacle. Okay, so we've covered the candy, the costumes, the decorations, but what about human food? I know it's so tempting to sneak our pups a bite of our Halloween treats, but is it ever really a good idea?
While we might want to share our festive feast, it's crucial to remember what's safe for us isn't always safe for them. In fact, some of the most common human foods can be really dangerous for our canine companions.
Yeah, like those grapes that everyone puts out on a cheese board this time of year. I learned that one the hard way. My dog swiped a few when I wasn't looking, and it was an emergency trip to the vet. Not fun.
That's a perfect example. And especially during gatherings, it's so important to be vigilant because along with those grapes, you've got onions, garlic, anything too fatty or spicy.
Yeah, it's a long list.
They're all potential hazards.
So it's best to just err on the side of caution.
Right.
When in doubt, leave it out. But what about, like, guests who might not be as informed? How do you politely but firmly tell them, hey, no, don't feed the dog?
Yeah, communication is key. Let your guests know right from the get-go that, hey, we'd really appreciate it if you didn't feed the dog any human food. You could even make a little joke about it. He's got his own stash of treats. Trust me, he'll let you know if he's hungry.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And having some dog-safe treats on hand is always a good backup plan. Okay, let's talk about those costumed kiddos for a sec. I've noticed that my dog gets a little weirded out when people's appearances are drastically different, like he doesn't recognize them or something.
That makes sense. Dogs rely heavily on visual cues. And costumes, especially masks, can obscure those cues, and that can make even familiar faces seem kind of strange and potentially threatening.
It's like that feeling when you bump into someone you know, but they've gotten a drastic haircut, and you're like, wait, who are you for a minute?
Yeah.
So with dogs, slow introductions are key.
Absolutely. Let your dog approach at their own pace. Never force an interaction if they seem scared. And positive reinforcement, like treats and praise, that can go a long way in helping them associate those costumes with good things.
Patience and positivity. I love it. Okay, let's switch gears to something a bit scarier. The possibility of our dogs getting lost. Halloween is kind of notorious for that, right? With all the commotion and doors opening and closing.
It's true. Halloween does bring an increased risk of pets getting lost.
Yeah.
All those distractions, the potential for a dog to slip out an open door, it can happen in a flash.
I'm getting anxious just thinking about it. So what are the absolute must-dos when it comes to identification? I know we've talked about microchipping before, but how does that actually work?
Microchipping's like giving your dog a permanent ID card. It's a tiny chip about the size of a grain of rice that's implanted under their skin, usually between their shoulder blades.
So if a lost dog is found, how does the chip actually help them get home?
Well, vets and shelters have scanners that can read the microchip's unique ID number,
Okay.
and that number is linked to your contact information in a national database, which allows them to reunite you with your pet.
It's like a safety net for our furry friends. That's amazing. I had no idea it was that simple. So along with microchipping, what else can we do to up our identification game?
Well, first and foremost, make sure their collar fits properly
Okay, yeah.
and that it has up-to-date ID tags.
Right.
And we're talking clearly visible phone numbers here, people.
Yes.
No faded ink, no illegible handwriting. Make it easy.
You heard it here, folks. Make it as easy as possible for someone to reunite you with your furry friend. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here today. Candy, decorations, costumes, and creating a safe haven for our pups. As we head into the Halloween season, what are some of the key takeaways our listeners should keep in mind?
I think the biggest one is just awareness. Halloween is so exciting. It's easy to overlook those potential hazards for our dogs. But by being mindful of those things like the candy, the decorations, costumes, even our guests, we can create a really safe and enjoyable experience for everyone, furry friends included.
I love that. It's about being proactive pet parents, not reactive pet parents.
Exactly.
And, a tired dog is a less likely to get into trouble dog, right?
Absolutely.
So those extra walks, playtime, all that counts toward Halloween safety.
Absolutely. A tired and mentally stimulated dog is a happy dog.
So true. Speaking of happy dogs, before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to something we talked about earlier, glow sticks.
Ah, yes, glow sticks.
As tempting as they are for those nighttime walks,
Right.
they're not worth the risk.
Not at all.
Those cases are just too tempting for dogs who love to chew.
Exactly.
And no one wants a drool-covered, potentially sick pup on Halloween. So LED alternatives.
Yes, LED alternatives much safer.
Safe and spooky is the name of the game. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
I'm sure our listeners have too.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to keeping our beloved pets safe.
So true. Now, as we wrap up, here's something I want to leave everyone with. We've talked a lot about Halloween-specific tips, but, how can we apply the same level of awareness and empathy to other situations that might be stressful for our pets? Whether it's a thunderstorm or a vet visit or even just a house full of guests, just thinking about their perspective can make all the difference.
That's such an important point to remember. It's not just about this one night. It's about being mindful of their needs all year round, advocating for them. They depend on us.
Absolutely. Well said. To all our listeners, have a fun, safe, and positively spooky Halloween. And remember, a little preparation goes a long way in keeping those tails wagging. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Thank you for your watching. If you find this video is helpful to you, please share it with your family and friends. Leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. And turn on the bell, that way you don't miss every single one of our videos. So that's for today's video. See you next time.